I'd like to introduce the first presentation here today. I'd like Jillian O'Leary, who's lead in our customer success team, to join me here on stage. And we're going to talk to you about using analytics to drive business growth.
Good morning. How are you? Welcome.
Great. So for the next 20 minutes or so, hopefully it'll only be 20 minutes. We could talk about this all day, but Ursula said we can only have 20 minutes. So what we want to do is talk to you about the numbers. On AB Commerce. Oh yeah. So you have very powerful analytics in the back end of AB Commerce. It's very much a focus for us, though, in 2024 to take that to the next level and to advance that. But we're also very aware that there's a lot of our retailers who are not really engaging with the analytics in the back end of AB Commerce now. Sometimes there's a little bit of a fear around it, not really sure what to look at, or when I do look at it, I'm not actually sure how to actually impact change. So I want to kind of demystify some of that today and give you some practical examples, or sometimes it just kind of goes to the end of the list. So what we want to do here today is just talk to you about the importance of looking at the numbers and how you can actually impact some changes on it. So let's get started. So what are the important numbers? Well, I suppose for everyone, the biggest number that we all look at is revenue, isn't it? So what we're looking at here is your sales by month report. So this is available to you in the back end of AB Commerce. And just to say as well, not everyone within the team might have access to this, so you can control who within your team sees information like this. So you've got things like sales by month, sales by week. So Jillian, do you want to talk us down just briefly what we're looking at here?
Yeah, definitely. As you said, Orla, I suppose everybody starts with revenue, and we'll get into the numbers behind the revenue, I suppose, in a few minutes. But this is probably the report that we would normally hear from our retailers that they look at the most. You're looking at your 2024 figures. This is an example on the screen. And I suppose some of the retailers in the room are maybe newer retailers, and other retailers will think back to when they were new retailers, and you won't see your previous year's figures. But this is the goal. Once you're live after 12 months, you'll see your revenue, your number of orders, the percentage change, I suppose, each month, year on year as well. And you'll also see that there's an algorithm in there with projections for the month, and that's all based on the traffic coming to your site and the orders placed within that month so far. So that number, that percentage change estimate number that you see there, let's say beside March, that changes according to the orders placed on your site within that month as well.
Excellent. And if we jump on beyond that, then we have other reports as well, like your top brands. We've got things like your top categories. And we also have your top products. And these are what we call your merchandising insights. And it's important for you to keep an eye on this, and we'll jump into them. But yeah, again, lots of useful information here, Jillian.
Yeah, so I suppose like that, it's not just about revenue while everybody looks at the revenue, and it's probably one of the easiest KPIs to mark growth on. I suppose it's also important to look at the likes of your brands and your products and your categories. And just looking at the percentage sales from each brand or your product or the category, and knowing, okay, well, this is one that I actually have good stock of, and we'll get into the ins and outs of reading the reports and what to do with that information in a couple of slides as well.
Yeah. Another great report then is your top products viewed but not added, or your top products abandoned.
Absolutely, yeah. This report, I suppose, is definitely one that we see a lot of people don't look at often enough. There'll be a couple in the room that say, okay, no, I look at it all the time. But then we have other retailers that they don't, or they say, oh yeah, it's interesting, but they don't get into why those numbers are there. And I suppose that's definitely one of the ones that's very important. And the top products abandoned as well sits beside this report on the dashboard and tells you a lot of information. You know, you can see, okay, it might be viewed, but it's not added to the cart, and then figuring out why it's not added, which we'll also get to in a couple of slides.
Yeah, excellent. And alongside what we've looked at there is some of just a selection, because there's loads of different reports there on the AB Commerce dashboard. They're your merchandising insights, but it's also important to keep a very close eye on your marketing insights as well. So we go to Google Analytics for that then. So looking at the channels that are actually driving traffic to your site. And if we just take a zoomed in look on this then, Jillian.
Yeah, it's not as scary as it looks, we promise. And Paul Walsh and a couple of more are going to chat about analytics as well today. And I suppose especially in their field, I suppose we just look at it at a very high level, and we'd encourage retailers to look at these types of reports as well in Google Analytics. And it does look scary, and especially the changeover from Universal Analytics to GA4 as well. But there's a couple of key ones that we would always kind of recommend at a retailer level to look at outside of your third parties. And I suppose a couple of the ones that we look at all the time would be your direct traffic, your organic search, your email, and then at a very high level pulling in any paid media advertising analytics from your Google Analytics as well.
And just understanding where the traffic is actually coming from.
Yeah, and and I suppose one of the biggest things, and I know Paul's going to chat about it as well later, is around the revenue that's coming from each channel. If you're putting effort into your organic search, are you getting a return from that, over a certain period of time? And just taking a very high level look at that on a regular basis is very important.
Okay, so time to actually get some audience participation here. We just get a
the
show
bit
of
you
hands.
don't like.
Yeah, exactly. Curious to know how many of you are, I suppose, looking at these reports on a very regular daily basis. Good. Yeah.
Daily.
Okay. Daily. Yeah.
Is that just revenue though?
Yeah. Look, that's good, and I suppose what's interesting is there's also different types of individuals within the business. So you've got the operations team who will be looking at this information on a daily basis, so things like your conversion rate, your number
average
of orders,
order value, those elements are definitely the ones that the operation, because they're closest to it. They see what's happening and they want to see what's happening.
Yeah.
I suppose what happens as a result of something else that they have done.
Yeah, we visited a retailer recently, and the operations guy said he comes in every morning. The very first thing he does is actually goes into the orders from the previous day, and he checks through the orders and identifies any order where there was something missed, something that could have been upsold with that product. And I thought that was just focusing on the numbers and where there was an opportunity to kind of include an add-on product or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. And even on top of that, thinking about stock levels as well. If something is selling through quite well within a week, okay, I need to get ahead of this and I need to reorder it as well.
Yeah. And then you have your buying team, which kind of leads on from that. So, your buying team should be looking at your top brands, your top categories, also products that are getting a lot of views, but that may not be purchased. And why is that? Sometimes because the product has actually gone out of stock. If your buyers are looking at that and they can get onto a supplier and restock that product, that could be very powerful, because you could be leaving money on the table, And
those teams probably don't look at it as regularly as daily, but there's still definitely important information in there for them as well.
And then obviously you have your management team who might just be looking at the top level information more regularly. Okay. So, what goes into revenue? I think this is an important one. I would encourage everybody to maybe take this one away. So, how is revenue calculated? So, it's your traffic by your conversion rate, by your average order value. That's what makes up your revenue. So, if we're looking at that on a weekly basis, so your 7,000 users, maybe your conversion rate is 1.5% and your average order value €50, and that's what your revenue looks like per week then.
Yeah, don't be afraid to peel back the layers, I suppose, and that's where we're going to get into some of the meaty stuff today as well.
That's it. So we thought we'd actually look at that, because I think there's some retailers who are in the audience here today who might be starting out in their journey, and they're thinking about, well, how am I going to get to the first $250,000 in terms of annual online revenue? And then we have some other retailers who are thinking, well, how am I going to get from 1 million to 2 million, or maybe 2 million to 3 million this year? All kind of comes down to this formula, really, So if you were just to take your status quo as it is at the moment, if you were to increase the traffic coming to your site from 7,000, say, to 10,000, keeping your conversion rate the same, your average order value the same, you can see how your revenue has now moved from 5K up to 7.5K. That's moving you to 30K per month, 360K annually. Imagine then if you were to look and focus on your conversion rate. And we'll talk about things that you can do to drive your conversion rate in a few minutes. But if you were to increase your conversion rate from 1.5% to 2.5%, even keeping your average order value the same, now we're at 12.5k revenue per week, 50k per month, and 600k. We've broken that $500,000 mark. And what if you were to take action then to maybe change up the products on the site and get higher margin, higher ticket items on the site and drive your average order value? Now we're looking at 25k in revenue per week, 100k per month, and 1.2 million annually. So these are just figures, you know, but we'd encourage everybody to take that formula away, look at what you're doing currently and play with those figures. What would it do if you were to change any one of those, and what would it mean for your business? So let's get a little bit more practical on it maybe. So here's a scenario. We've traffic by conversion rate, by average order value, equals your revenue, and that's the figures currently at the moment. So say you've noticed your traffic drops down to 5,000 in terms of your users coming to the site. I suppose, you know, what drives your traffic is probably the first thing to talk about, you know, and you've mentioned it earlier, your paid search, your paid social.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, you know, it's all about that acquisition and getting the people onto the site. And you know, anyone that's been on calls with us recently, or you know, in the last 12 months, knows that cost of acquisition has increased. Just like, again, if you're with any paid digital marketing agency, they'll tell you the same. I suppose paid marketing is definitely one of the main areas, but it's not the only area, you know, and all those organic elements that you do as well, that is driving traffic. But I suppose the standard is that most of your traffic will probably come from paid elements. And I suppose, you know, it's being close to the numbers is when you'll see traffic drops like this, or you know, there's a decrease in revenue. These should be the first elements that you look at. And I suppose looking at the traffic, you know, if it was regularly 8,000 in and about, and then it drops to 5,000, you need to question that, okay? You need to think about, right, what has been different, you know? Okay, there can be elements outside of your control, but, you know, has there been anything that you have done differently yourselves? You know, have you left something out that you'd normally build in? And I suppose one of the main elements around this, and the quickest way that you'll realise any changes to the norm, is with a marketing and comms calendar. And again, anybody that has been chatting to us, to the customer success team in the last 12 months alone, will know that we harp on an awful lot about the marketing and comms calendar, and today is no different. And I suppose it's just to build that consistency across the board, no matter what element of marketing you're doing. You know, be that organic, be it paid, your email, your social. Does that all replicate then back onto your website? So I suppose definitely that would be one of the first elements that we would look at. If you do have one, and if you don't have one, you should start one after today.
Yeah, and that's something that we can help you with if you don't have a structure on that. Influencer campaigns and even your traditional marketing that can have an impact on the traffic going to your site. And spoke to a retailer who spotted an issue with that last night, where, you know, there had been a little bit of a drop off, and it was to do with a traditional marketing channel that traditionally drove traffic to the site. They had sent it out a week or two later and had an impact on the site. But if you had your marketing comms calendar, and you can actually see that, you'd identify those.
Yeah, and even making notes of stuff like that. You know, again, we do e-com trading calls with our retailers, and you know, we look at a very high level at the sales by week, and we would see people kind of telling us, oh, they were up that week because of X, Y, or Z, or they were down that week because, you know, we were a week later sending out comms, you know. So definitely paring back the layers again further.
Yeah, conversion rate.
Yes.
Okay, so we thought it might be useful, because we have retailers in the hardware vertical, we have retailers in the pharmacy vertical, and we also have retailers in what we call maybe a fashion, apparel, sports in that vertical as well. It would be interesting if we actually looked at the typical conversion rates across each of those verticals, because for you as a retailer sitting here today, you'd often wonder how you stack up maybe against some of the competition. And obviously we can see that information across all AB Commerce retailers. So just to maybe share some of that with you here today. So what we're seeing is retailers in the hardware space, generally the conversion rate there is somewhere between kind of 1% and 4%. And we have some retailers beyond that as well. Pharmacy retailers, on average, you're looking at a conversion rate of about 8%. Again, we have some performing a lot better and some even into double digits, if you can imagine that. And then we have fashion, sports and apparel. Typically, we're seeing that sitting around the 2%. So you can see different industries, different levels of conversion rate. So I suppose if it's a situation that conversion rate drops, practical things that you should look at would be, I suppose, your stock holding of your top products. That'll probably be
if something has been one of those best sellers that you've been looking at and it suddenly goes out of stock and you haven't noticed that, if it's a trending product, you'd see it no matter what industry you're in, like hardware, Ninja air fryers, they're so hard to keep on the shelves, same in pharmacy, there's beauty products, with your influencer products, they're hard to keep stock of. And, if that drops off, you will notice a drop in your conversion rate. And sometimes it's out of your control, but it's always good to know where that drop is coming from. Other elements that can also impact your conversion is the actual, your product descriptions, your imagery on the site, is that good enough? If it's a trending product, but you're not telling me anything about it, then, people are just going to view it and jump straight back off that page and, not click into it.
Another area we'd ask you to kind of maybe have a look at as well is the categorization. We support retailers in setting up the categorization when you go live, but invariably catalogues increase and grow. So if the categorization has become unwieldy, it can be difficult for customers to actually find the products, so that structure can have a big impact then on your conversion rate. And also look at your shipping charges and your delivery timelines as well, and stack yourself up against the competition because your customers do. And remember, put yourself in your customer's shoes. We are all customers at the end of the day. We all sit at home with two browsers open looking at the same product in two different websites. Somebody's going to give it to you next day for that rate, and somebody's going to give it to you in 3 or 5 days, which you're going to go for. Now obviously every business has to make decisions around that and there's drivers around that, but it can have a big
even
impact.
It's something that can get overlooked in a housekeeping element. I was chatting to a retailer recently, and they had 5 days I think for delivery, but in actual fact they were delivering everything next day. So just be clear with your messaging as well.
Average order value then, so say that has dropped, and again I thought it'd be useful maybe just to share some benchmark data of what we're seeing. So average order value in the hardware vertical, we're seeing that being quite high, anywhere between €100 and €400. Typical, I suppose, you have a lot of high ticket items, particularly coming into this season, garden equipment and outdoor furniture and all of those things. In contrast then, pharmacy, we're typically seeing the average order value of maybe €50 to €60, and then fashion, that can be a little bit higher, maybe of €80 to €100. So good for you to maybe kind of go, okay, I'm on par, or maybe a little bit below that, but it's good for you to maybe kind of have an idea. If you want to drive your average order value, then it's about getting the high ticket items onto the site, but high margin items as well. It's really important. And making sure that those products are focus then of all marketing campaigns, and again, back to the marketing comms calendar, are those products a focus of your paid campaigns, your paid social, paid search campaigns, your paid social campaigns? Are they merchandised on your site? Are they a focus of your organic social media? Are they a focus of your email marketing? And looking across all those different channels and being very holistic in the approach, and it not being an afterthought that you're planned around it.
And knowing how they look visually on the site as well, and making sure you have any upselling or cross-selling related to those products on the site as well.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So let's look at a product. Another example here then would be to look at a product. This is a product that is on our top viewed products, but isn't being added to cart. And you can actually click on the products from that report to investigate those further. And here's an example, and I suppose if we were to pop into this and say, well, why isn't it selling? Loads of people are looking at it, but it's not selling. So let's point out the glaring issues. The first one being it's out of stock, so I can't add it to basket, So if a buyer or business owner is spotting that, can you get on the phone to a supplier? There's clearly a need and a desire for this product. Can you get it back into stock?
It's collection only.
It's collection only.
Also is a hindrance. I suppose some of our retailers have multi-units, which is great. But if you're in one physical store and it's a collection only item, that will obviously, traffic are obviously going to get to this product page, but they won't convert because it's not logistical.
Yeah, it's quite a high ticket item, but there's no description of the product. So I don't know what the dimensions are, so put yourself in the customer's shoes, as we said earlier, ask yourself, have you all the information that you need to actually make a purchasing decision here? So, can there be better descriptions? Can there be better images? Can there be a video of the product? And all of that just lend itself to it. So there is some of those key elements. Another example then, looking at the top products report. So it's great to look at this and say, okay, well, these are the top selling products, but what do you do with that information? So the question is, they're the top selling products, but what about the products that aren't appearing on that list? And are there products within your business that there's much stronger margin on that aren't on that list? And if there are, how can you make plans, again, back to your marketing comms calendar, to integrate and shift the balance on those products to make sure that those higher margin products do start appearing on that list? And again, focus of your paid search campaigns, your paid social, merchandising them on the site, your social media engagement, your email marketing. It all kind of, that holistic approach comes back to that all of the time. Yeah,
and there's definitely, everybody here in this room definitely has something that they're sitting on that can be one of those niche or hero brands that isn't showing up, and recognizing the correlation. Can you cross-sell or upsell either of those as well is very important from these reports.
Yeah. And again, top brands, something we often see with our retailer sites, and you can see it here in the example, 65% of the revenue is actually coming from 2 brands. Retailers say, is that okay? Is that a pro, is that a con? It's good. There's clearly kind of a hero product. There's hero brands there on the site, which is great because you might get first mover advantage. But I suppose it leaves you a little bit vulnerable. Yeah,
no,
don't get comfortable.
Don't get comfortable. And even, a lot of, as well, retailers here have different departments in their stores. And, it's very good to kind of recognise the departments that are prominent in these reports as well, and from your brands and your categories, and just recognising, okay, do I want to be, as prominent in that area? And, just don't get too comfortable because, like that, it is a competitive market, and you need to recognise those niche areas that you can stand out from as well.
Yeah, and if a product or a brand becomes more widely available,
yes,
cost per click is going to go up on those products and those brands, and just might be a little bit more difficult for you to stand apart.
Yeah, it's no harm to change up the balance at all, and try out new things as well,
Yeah, and having your ear to the ground is really important on spotting new trends and new products. We also...
And speak to your teams because they're very close to what goes on in the business, but also outside of the business, social media, what's trending, they can spot things as well. So don't be afraid to chat internally outside of just an online team as well.
Yeah, and to take the feedback, so things like your Ninja air fryers all became... on trend. Your Spin Ingredients was really on trend, Bare by Vogue. So spotting those and being aware and making sure that the site is as promoting those products. And then I suppose in terms of numbers and reporting, we can't talk about that without talking about retention and the importance of the returning customer. And some of you will have seen us present this slide in the past, but just to briefly talk you through it again, the green bar on the left-hand side is your spend on, say, paid digital advertising. The blue bar beside it then is your return. So as a benchmark, we would say, always look at a 5x return on what you're spending. Month 4 to month 6 then, you might be spending €1,000 and improve that return from a 5x return maybe to an 8 times return. And how are you doing that? Is by looking at the channels that are performing well, and if you've got a digital marketing agency that's very commercially focused, they'll help you to do that and reallocate some of the budget into the channels that are performing better so that you're getting a better return from it. But it's the orange bar that's sitting beside it which is really important. They're the customers who came to you maybe through a paid advertising campaign in month 1, but they're coming back to you now as in month 4 because of the retention strategies that you have in place. So these might be down to your email marketing or how you're re-engaging the customer, and you can see how that builds over time. So it's about really building a solid foundation of, yes, spending money to acquire customers, but making sure that you're harvesting the long-term value of that customer through the years, and it's not just a one-time purchase. Because if you stop spending on your paid social or your paid search campaign, campaigns, then your revenue is going to fall off a cliff, you know.
Yes.
So you're seeing some great returns from those who've engaged on email.
Absolutely, I suppose. And again, anyone that is on calls with Emer or myself in the last while, you know, email marketing is my hero element of digital marketing, and you know, it's definitely one of those areas that needs dedication and time and resourcing, but it will return for you. You know, it's a very warm audience. Anybody that's on your email marketing list wants to be there. And I suppose like that, we've worked with retailers in the last 12 months as part of our customer success program, executing email marketing for them. And you know, we've seen with one particular retailer, there was a 20% increase in overall traffic and a 10% increase in their revenue for the same period versus the year before. And that was just one extra element in terms of their marketing channels. Now, there is other elements in terms of planning a comms calendar and looking at their figures regularly, but the number one change was through email marketing. So it is very strong, and it does return.
Yeah, and it's not just email either, I suppose, and we record all of the sessions from each of our events, and I'd encourage you maybe to go back. We did quite a detailed presentation last year around loyalty and retention, with loads of other ideas outside of email for how you can re-engage the customer even through your fulfillment process to bring them back into the site and re-engage you again. So no harm to maybe go back and just refresh your mind on that as well. That's available on our Magico YouTube channel. And finally, resourcing this, hopefully that has been informative and it hasn't scared you. I appreciate...
We're around for the day if there's any questions.
Yes, yeah. I appreciate that, you know, resourcing is sometimes a challenge for retailers. And what we've talked about here is time-consuming, engaging with the numbers. You know, if you find that it's something that you don't have time or resources within your own team, you can always engage Magico. We offer services, some of the services that are listed on the screen here, to support retailers, and we're very proactively working with retailers on a monthly basis to deliver services in all of those areas. So you should see us as an extension of your e-com team when those situations occur and resources might be tight, or you may not have the skill set internally yourselves. So we'd be delighted to talk to you.
A lot of the time, you know, when we speak to retailers, you know, the main person is just so busy getting the practical stuff done that they don't always get a chance to look at, like that, the analytics falls to the bottom of the list, or, you know, the in-depth reporting. And, you know, we're happy to help you out in terms of that, even if it's, you know, for a short-term basis, or, you know, just pointers. If anyone wants to chat around today, I'll be around, and Emer from the customer success team will be around as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.